Investment advice provided on the following program is on an individual basis. Listeners should not consider today's discussion as a recommendation for any investment and should carefully evaluate before investing. This is your Real Estate Today on News Talk 1110.
Hello and welcome to the show, Your Real Estate Today. Happy Saturday to you. This is Paul Jameson, your host of the show, Your Real Estate Today. Welcome, welcome. We're glad you're with us, and we're also thankful that you're having hopefully a good Saturday. I'm here with my good friend Preston Sandlin with Home Inspection Carolina. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and this show is specifically to help you with anything and everything having to do with real estate. So, who in the heck am I? Well, I am the owner of the Jameson family of companies, Jameson Realty, Jameson Property Investments, and Jameson Property Management. I'm here with Preston Sandlin. He and his wife Meg are the owners of Home Inspection Carolina. Preston, I was thinking about on the way down here, how many years have you been doing inspections for our group?
Wow, a long time, man.
Seems like it.
I think our first pictures together were in black and white, so it's probably been a while.
Sepia tone.
Yeah, there you go. Before they came out with Technicolor.
35mm slides.
Yeah,
We
there
had
you
pictures, man. We just held them up to the light and smiled at them.
There you go.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Preston and his team have been important part of our Jameson family for a long, long time, and Preston's been on the air with me almost since the very beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
So glad you're with us, Preston. Let me just tell you a little bit, since we're pre-recorded today, about what is coming. So sit back, relax, and turn us up and keep us on, because we've got a lot of great information to share today. Unfortunately, we're not live. We usually are, but unable to make that happen today. So here's what we're going to talk about. Preston is going to give us some front and center news on something called CSST bonding, and then he's going to share with us some quick and easy energy efficiency tips. I, in correlation with his theme, are going to finish the last week's show that we did not get to were the rental tips. If you are an incidental landlord or a landlord and you want some rental tips, I'm going to give you some cutting edge things to think about in the rental process. So we're going to talk about that some, and if we have time, I'm going to talk a little bit about investment property. You know, we at Jameson, we do buyers and sellers all day long, and I do get requests. People say, hey, can you talk a little more about investment? Sure. So we're going to do that some today.
Okay.
So normally if you had something you wanted to ask, we would ask you to call, but you can reach us anytime during the week at 846-DONE, 846-3663. Okay. All right, Preston.
Yeah.
Let's not delay. Let's
Okay.
talk about CSST bonding. What is it? Why is it important? And what is the impact on the individual home owner?
Okay, all right. Well, CSST, that is an acronym for corrugated stainless steel tubing. And that's what's used for your gas lines going into your house, whether it be for furnace, water heater, gas logs, you name it. That's what they're using. They've been using probably about the last 15 years. This was a big topic in our home inspection continuing education. You know, we have to take continuing education just like Paul for real estate, and Paul takes even more than the normal amount. But this was a big topic, and the thing is, it has to be bonded. And the reason being is because if you think about it for a second, Paul, you have this gas line going into your house, and this CSST, it's flexible. You know, in the old days, you just had that big, piece of iron, go in. You could only do a 90. You could only do,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit inflexible as far as running it around rafters and things like that.
Yes.
Okay, so the problem with, if you think about it though, the way this is, it's like little pieces of stainless steel, one after the other, after the other, after the other, so it's kind of bendable, right?
Ah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the problem came in a lot of explosions actually, if there was a way this thing can get electrified. Whenever you're talking about metal, something can be electrified by a lightning strike, a hot wire somehow getting connected to it. Well, anything that can be electrified, like your electrical system, has to be grounded. Well, your gas line is grounded, but what happens is with this corrugated stainless steel, it has so many sections that electricity, the grounding loses. It's, you know, as it goes from one piece to the next, to the next, to the next, it can't make it to the ground properly and then ground out. Whenever something gets electrified, you've got to be able to ground it so the electricity can escape. Otherwise, it's bad. So what would happen? Yeah.
And it's got gas in it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened. It was first documented in Dallas. A house got hit by lightning. The CSST line, you know, got electrified, and there was a pinhole in it, and the gas came out, the spark, boom, it blew up. So if you have CSST, it has to be bonded. And what do I mean by bonded? Well, as soon as it enters the house, before it gets to the first appliance, you have this little clamp on it. And there's a couple of different ones, and it clamps it to usually a copper wire. And that copper wire has to go back to either the box or a pipe, but typically the box, because your box is grounded to an 8-foot rod that goes into the ground. So what happens is, Paul, is if there is a lightning strike, you're giving that electricity a way to escape and go to the ground and disperse.
Right, and go away.
Exactly.
You up.
Right, right. Because otherwise it's going to get trapped among the CSST, and you got electricity, and you got thin walls, and you got a pinhole leak in the gas, boom, and it's really bad. So that's something that inspectors are going to look for. If you have CSST, and I'll put a thing up on my website if you look at askthecharlotteinspector.com, you just want to make sure that it's bonded somewhere before it gets to the first appliance. You're going to see a clamp with a wire, and that wire probably is going to go back to your box, or it can go to some water piping. I'd rather see it go to the box, because then that goes straight to a ground, but it has to be grounded, and the idea is so that if it was electrified, the electricity has a way to get back to the ground and disperse.
So it's not grounded. The CSST coming out of the meters, typically, coming out of the meter, gas meter, when would it become CSST?
When it starts to have that kind of slinky look, and typically it'll have yellow, that'll have a yellow sheathing over it, and it kind of looks like because it's multiple tubes, one after the other, so it kind of has sort of a rounded, you know, like kind of like a worm, like a woolly worm. I don't know if that's the right word, but on the back page there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not this one. It's
No.
the smoother looking.
Yeah. Now the gas connector, sometimes you'll have one of those. They're just a short gas. You'll see it just connected to your water heater or something like that. That's less than 6 foot. That's not CSST. That's just a gas connector. This is not a problem. That's not going to be longer than 6 foot. But the CSST is the problem if it's not grounded.
A lot of feet.
Right, right. And again, the problem is if it gets electrified, hit by lightning or a stray wire, somehow it gets electrified, and you've got gas, and the electricity has no way to disperse, aka get grounded and disperse into the ground, you've got problems and a potential explosion.
Right. So
fire.
this stuff, technically, so what you're saying, and I'm probably saying the wrong thing, but so it's not self-grounding. It has to physically be grounded by a clamp or something else.
Correct, correct, correct. Well, the idea when it was originally put in is that it does ground, but it has to travel so far on those rings that it just doesn't work effectively. So that's why you have to ground it basically with a jumper. What we're talking about is a jumper. So you're jumping that wire because as it goes from one piece to the next, to the next, to the next, it's losing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's not, you're not giving it a great escape route. You're basically trapping that electricity. It is grounded actually without the wire, but it's not grounded effectively.
Not effectively enough to cause it not to go.
Correct, correct. So that's why you're putting a grounding clamp on it and a wire. It's basically a jumper.
So what if somebody has this stuff and it's not grounded? Is it a big deal?
Yes, yes. It is going to be a write-up on a home inspection report. After 2005, it was code, but that it be installed that way. But you could have it before 2005, and it didn't have it. But a home inspector is going to write it up. The good news is it's not terribly expensive to put a ground on it and put a jumper. It's not.
And who would do that? An electrician?
Possibly an electrician or a plumber. Different ones could do it.
Okay.
But yeah, I would. The electrician would probably be the best.
Okay, another thing for us to look at.
Another
Right.
curveball. Easy fix.
That
though.
was interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
Right.
there's some scary stuff that's happened.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I learned something new, and I hope you did too. Stay with us. We've got so much more here with Preston Sandler from Home Inspection Carolina. I'm Paul Jameson, your host with the show Your Real Estate Today and the Jameson family of companies here in the WBT studios. Stay with us on News 1110 99.3 WBT.